2%. That is the fraction of the world's population that has green eyes, not blue eyes, which are rare but present in roughly 8 to 10% of people worldwide. Not brown eyes, which are the most common human eye color by a wide margin, carried by approximately 70 to 80% of the global population. Green eyes, 2%, approximately 160 million people in a world of 8 billion. Green eyes are the rarest of all common eye colors, and they are not distributed randomly across the world. They cluster in specific geographic regions, in specific populations, with a concentration pattern that tells a precise story about ancient human migration, about a specific ancestral group, and about one of the most debated questions in evolutionary biology. Why did lighter eye colors spread at all? Blue eyes trace back to a single mutation in an individual who lived 6 to 10,000 years ago. The genetic evidence for this is overwhelming. Every blue-eyed person on Earth carries the identical genetic change, at the identical position in their DNA. Green eyes are different. They are genetically more complex, more ancient in some of their components, and more mysterious in their distribution. And the ancient population that appears to have carried green eyes at unusually high frequencies is one that sits at one of the most consequential crossroads in human prehistory, the Caucasus Mountains, the narrow strip of land between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, where Europe meets Asia, and where the ancient world's most important population movements passed through. This is the story of green eyes, and it is, at its core, a story about a people who stood at the intersection of worlds. To understand green eyes, you first need to understand why they are so rare. The answer lies in the genetics of eye color. The genetics are considerably more complicated than most people realize. Eye color is determined primarily by the amount and type of melanin present in the iris. Brown eyes have a lot of melanin. Blue eyes have almost none. Green eyes sit in a very specific middle zone. They have more melanin than blue eyes, but less than brown or hazel eyes. But it is not just the amount of melanin that creates green. It is the combination of a small amount of melanin with Rayleigh scattering, the same physical phenomenon that makes the sky appear blue. In a green eye, the iris contains a small amount of yellow-brown melanin called pheomelanin. This pigment absorbs some wavelengths of light. The remaining light is scattered by the collagen fibers. The combination of warm pheomelanin and blue light scattering produces the green color. The exact shade, from pale sage to deep emerald, depends on the precise amount of pheomelanin present and how it interacts with the light scattering. This means green eyes require a very specific genetic configuration, not too much melanin, not too little, and the right ratio of different melanin types. This configuration depends on the interaction of 15 different genes, with the two most important being OCA2 and HERC2 on chromosome 15. Different variants of these genes produce different amounts of melanin, determining where your eye color falls on the spectrum from brown to blue. Green occupies a narrow and genetically demanding zone. This complexity is why green eyes are so rare. Blue eyes require a mutation-reducing OCA2 activity. Brown eyes require the ancestral form of OCA2. Green eyes require a specific intermediate configuration that is less likely to arise. The rarity of green eyes is a consequence of biology. If you look at the global distribution, the pattern is striking. Green eyes are most common in Ireland and Scotland, where they occur in approximately 30% of the population. They are also common in Iceland, the Nordic countries, and across Central Europe. In Germany, about 15% of the population has them. In Turkey, green eyes occur at rates above the global average, which is unusual given Turkey's position between Europe and Asia. But the concentration becomes even more interesting in the Caucasus region. Georgians, Armenians, and Azerbaijanis show very high frequencies. In some populations of the North Caucasus, green eyes occur in 20 to 30% of individuals. This is comparable to Ireland. Then there is an unexpected outlier, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Specifically, the Pashtun and the Kalash of northern Pakistan. The Kalash community in the Hindu Kush maintains West Eurasian genetic characteristics far from Europe. Their green eyes express that ancient ancestry. This distribution follows the ancient migration routes of populations whose genetic legacy shaped the eye color map we see today. Understanding those populations requires going back to the Bronze Age expansion from the Eurasian steppe. The Caucasus Mountains form one of the most formidable natural barriers in Eurasia, a wall of peaks rising above 5,000 meters that separates the plains of Eastern Europe and Russia to the north from the plateau of Anatolia and the Fertile Crescent to the south. For most of human prehistory, this mountain range was a refugium, a place where populations could survive in relative isolation during the harsh conditions of the Ice Age and its aftermath. Genetic studies have identified a distinct ancestral population associated with the Caucasus region that geneticists call the Caucasus hunter-gatherers, abbreviated as CHG. This population inhabited the Caucasus and adjacent regions during the Mesolithic and early Neolithic periods, roughly 10,000 to 6,000 years ago. They were genetically distinct from the Western hunter-gatherers of Europe and from the early European farmers of Anatolia. They represented a third major ancestral population that contributed to the genetic makeup of modern Europeans and Middle Easterners. The Caucasus hunter-gatherers are particularly relevant to our story because they appear to have carried genetic variants associated with lighter eye colors at higher frequencies than the other ancient populations. Ancient DNA studies of CHG individuals have found elevated frequencies of the OCA2 and HARC2 variants. The Caucasus, in other words, appears to have been a place where the genetic prerequisites for green eyes were unusually common. This makes geographic sense. The Caucasus region receives moderate sunlight, less than the Middle East, but more than Scandinavia. It is a region where a partial reduction in melanin might have conferred advantages without the extreme depigmentation that evolved in the northernmost populations. The moderate melanin levels that produce green eyes may represent an adaptive sweet spot for the light environment of the Caucasus. The story of how green eyes spread involves one of the most dramatic population movements, the expansion of the Yamnaya culture 5,000 years ago. The Yamnaya were a Bronze Age pastoral people who lived on the vast grasslands north of the Black and Caspian Seas. They were among the first people to fully domesticate the horse and to use wheeled vehicles. They were speakers of an early form of Proto-Indo-European, the ancestral language that would eventually give rise to most of the languages of Eurasia. And they were genetically a mixture of Eastern European hunter-gatherers and Caucasus hunter-gatherers. That Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry is crucial. It means the Yamnaya carried the genetic variants for lighter eyes that the CHG population had maintained. When the Yamnaya expanded westward into Europe approximately 5,000 years ago and eastward toward Central Asia, they carried those genetic variants with them. The genetic impact of the Yamnaya expansion on Europe was enormous. Ancient DNA studies have shown they contributed approximately 50% of the ancestry. In some populations, particularly in the Baltic and Scandinavian countries, the Yamnaya-related ancestry is even higher. This massive genetic contribution explains why lighter eye colors, including green, are concentrated in the populations that descend most heavily from the Yamnaya. It also explains the pockets of lighter eyes in South Asia. The same Yamnaya-related expansion that moved westward also moved eastward, eventually reaching the Indian subcontinent and contributing to the ancestry of many South Asian populations. The Kalash of Pakistan, with their green and blue eyes and West Eurasian genetic ancestry, are a living reminder of this ancient migration. Their unusual eye colors are not a coincidence or a recent admixture. They are the genetic legacy of Bronze Age pastoralists who rode across the Eurasian steppe 5,000 years ago, carrying the legacy of the Caucasus with them. Green eyes are the rarest common eye color, requiring a specific genetic configuration that is less common than those producing blue or brown eyes. So why did they persist? Why did natural selection not eliminate them or push them toward one genetic extreme or the other? A landmark 2015 study of ancient DNA identified a powerful selection signal at the HARC2 and OCA2 locus in European populations. The statistics were unambiguous. Something was strongly favoring lighter eyes among ancient Europeans. The signal was too strong to be explained by random drift. Something was actively selecting for lighter eye colors. What that something was is still debated. Two main hypotheses exist, and they aren't mutually exclusive. The first is vitamin D synthesis. In northern latitudes with limited sunlight, reduced melanin in the eyes allows more UV radiation to penetrate. This is essential for vitamin D production. People with lighter pigmentation can synthesize vitamin D more efficiently in these low-light environments. Green eyes may represent an optimal balance for Central Europe and the Caucasus. Enough pigmentation for protection, but little enough to allow vitamin D synthesis. The second hypothesis is sexual selection. In populations where brown eyes were the norm, any individual with a different eye color would be highly distinctive. Research suggests that visual distinctiveness in eye color is consistently rated as attractive, signaling rarity and genetic uniqueness. Over thousands of generations, a preference for distinctive eye colors would produce a measurable increase in their frequency, exactly what ancient DNA studies detected. Green eyes benefited from both forces, a mild functional advantage in intermediate light environments, and an attractiveness premium that compounded over generations. Green eyes have attracted cultural attention across human history. Some of that attention may have contributed to their spread through sexual selection. In ancient Persia, the empire that controlled the Caucasus, green eyes were associated with royalty and divine favor. Persian poetry frequently used green eyes as a symbol of beauty and otherworldliness. The word for green, sabz, appears repeatedly in classical literature. This cultural valuation reinforced the trait's presence within the ruling classes who carried Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry. In Celtic cultures of Western Europe, green was associated with magic, the fairy world, and the supernatural. The association of green eyes with magical properties in folklore reflects the actual rarity and visual distinctiveness of the trait in these populations. Even in areas where light eyes were more common, the specific green hue remained an object of fascination and mystical significance. This cultural lens elevated the trait, making it a desirable marker of identity and ancestral connection. In ancient Egypt, whose population was predominantly brown-eyed, green eyes were unusual enough to be noted in texts and depicted in art. They were often markers of foreign origin, associated with peoples from the north and northeast, the direction of the Caucasus and Europe. The Egyptians' meticulous records of these physical differences highlight how green eyes served as a visual bridge between diverse ancient civilizations. From the Nile to the steppes, this rare trait was recognized and recorded, embedding it into the historical tapestry of human migration. These cultural associations suggest that green eyes were consistently noticed, valued, and associated with specific ethnic origins across the ancient world. That consistent attention is evidence of how distinctive the trait was and how that distinctiveness contributed to its spread through social mechanisms. Ultimately, the survival of green eyes is a testament to both biological adaptation to environment and the power of human cultural preference, a genetic rarity that became a global legacy, reflecting our history in a single glance. Common eye color. Gray eyes result from a dense collagen layer in the iris stroma that scatters light differently than blue or green eyes. Amber eyes, a warm gold or copper color, are extremely rare in humans and occur most frequently in Asian and South American ancestry. And violet eyes, often associated with albinism, result when the absence of melanin allows red blood vessels to mix with blue light scattering. Green eyes sit at the upper end of the rarity scale. Their striking appearance and complex genetics make them one of the most studied traits, a genetic configuration requiring 15 genes, likely originating in the Caucasus Mountains between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. Their spread was carried by Bronze Age Yamnaya pastoralists, transforming the genetic landscape of both Europe and South Asia. Cultural fascination, from Persian poetry to Celtic folklore, may have contributed to the trait's persistence through sexual selection. If you have green eyes, you carry one of the rarest genetic configurations in the human species, standing at the crossroads of worlds. Subscribe to Hidden Origins for more stories. Drop a comment. Do you have green eyes? We want to know.